Hi, I am Jan Reardon, and I am a board member of the Jennifer Reardon Foundation, which was formed in honor of my sister-in-law. And the core values of the foundation that my brother has created would be, we have 4 core values, and they are community vitality, early childhood education, financial literacy, and women's empowerment. And today, as always, we just have so many wonderful people here in the Burlington area, and to be able to have them on the show and talk about the amazing work that they do that many people, myself included, in most cases, today I tend to know a little bit more about this topic, thankfully, because of the people that are here. But there's just so many great things going on. And today I have the honor of bringing in 2 individuals that work at Lund in Burlington. And Lund, we'll get into the mission for those of you that are not familiar with it so that we can talk a little bit more. But as you'll see, we're really touching on early childhood education, women's empowerment in this case, and then certainly, again, community vitality, which it's amazing, the programs that are going on and have been in place at Lund for so many years. And one of my guests, Wanda Audette, who I have the pleasure of introducing first here, is the development, or I'm sorry, she is actually the director of adoption, which I well know because I had the absolute pleasure of adopting my son 27 years ago from Wanda. Welcome back. I just so many emotions that we'll just move along on that so that we can talk to you more about the mission and all the great work that has been going on after that precious day that you brought to me back 27 years ago. But then also we have the pleasure, and the first time that I'm getting to meet you, Sharon Litschutz, and you are the development director at Lund. Yep. And how long have you been?
5 years.
5 years, wonderful. And then Wanda, as I mentioned, she'll be retiring at the end of the year officially after 30, very remarkable 30-year career. So let's just start right in if we could here. Great. Welcome to both of you. Thank you both for being here. It's such a pleasure. I've been looking forward to this for days, so thank you so much. And let's just begin, if we could, to spread the word on what is the true mission and the values of Lund.
Great. Thanks, Jan, for inviting us to be here. Lund's mission is Lund helps children thrive by empowering families to break cycles of poverty, addiction, abuse. Lund offers hope, opportunity to families through education, treatment, family support, and adoption. And we've worked really hard on looking at what our core values are, and what's really important to Lund is that we work in collaboration with our community, because we know that we need our community to have everybody sort of working together in what's going to be best for our children and families that we're working with. We also lead our work in a very family-centered approach. Children and families are at the center of all of our work, and we lead with that compassion because that's also very important. We are empathetic, that's a value of ours, and really about respecting our clients where they're at. We don't have a hidden agenda. Right. We don't have a focus on where people should be or what's happening, but we meet with people where they're at now. Beautiful. And we work with them about what they want. It's not what I want. Right. It's not what society wants. It's not what anybody else wants. It's what they want and what's their goals of what they're working with. And we work with people in that way. Right. And we hold high integrity. We really want to make sure that we are honest, that we're transparent, and that we hold our staff to be very honest folks when we're working with others. So.
And it shows, obviously, I can, attest to that firsthand in many different stories that we don't need to get into right now, but I have always felt that connection with you and with Lund over the years from a distance. Even though we're right here close by to one another, I still hear about the great work, and I obviously have living proof of how successful adoption is, and what a wonderful group of programs that you provide, as well as, just as you're listing things off, before you even say collaboration, you know the collaboration because you've covered every aspect of that child's life and that family's being. So again, thank you so much. And I'd like to ask you, Sharon, from a development point of view, what do you find when you go out into the community or when you have events, which I do want to talk too about
Absolutely.
donations and the needs of the organization financially. But what do you find that there's more awareness needed, or what do you find to be your biggest challenge as you go out into the community to spread the good work that you're doing?
Yeah, so I think part of the challenge is we do so much as an agency. We've been doing so much for so long. So we've been working in the state of Vermont for 135 years, since 1890, right? And so we do that. We're also statewide, which I think not very many people know, because our physical buildings are statewide, or in Chittenden County, but our staff are statewide. We're embedded in DC offices across the state. And so I think that's sometimes a misconception.
Absolutely.
And then really, because we do so much, sometimes it's hard to distill it. And what we are doing is we are strengthening families so that children can thrive.
And then again, tying back to strengthening the community. I mean, you've really been able to bring people together and be so much more productive than any one of them could have been on their own.
Absolutely.
And here they are together and really an asset to the community instead of not living their best life.
Right. And I say, you know, strong families make stronger communities.
Yes.
And that impacts all of us. And
It
isn't that
sure
the
does.
future that we want?
Exactly right.
Absolutely.
That cannot be, you know, taken, you know, too lightly. It's
Absolutely.
right, the driving force for sure. Great. Well, thank you so much. Let's we'll be going back and forth here, if that's okay. And please feel free to, you know, say anything to one another, to me, that you'd like to as we go along, or within reason. Okay. So how about, you know, speaking kind of on the development side as well, but what is the greatest financial need right now? Is there like more capital, or is it more programming related? Or obviously there's always needs, but what would you say is the top priority as you look ahead to the next couple of years?
Sure. So, you know, Vermont children are 17% of our population in the state, but they're 100% of our future. So our need, right, is being able to provide our wraparound, integrated, high quality services, not just to invest in children and families now, but really to invest in the future of Vermont. And we have our largest fundraising goal that we've ever had. So I think what we're really trying to help folks understand is every dollar is not just an impact in the children and families we serve, but is an absolute investment in Vermont's future.
Right. And what is that goal?
Sure. So it's 1.9 million.
And what had it been, if this is the largest, how much has it increased?
Last year was 1.7, and when I first started 5 years ago, it was 1.2, 1.3. And so we've been able to do that with, you know, a lot of staff turnover. I mean, we've had folks like Wanda who have been such a champion in fundraising. And what I say often is that it's really a champion in relationship building, because again, when we invest in families, we invest in communities, and that impacts all of us. So how are we inviting more people to be a part of work that's hard, but also so joyful,
rewarding
and
too.
so rewarding
Yeah.
and meaningful? And I know Wanda has so many examples of how those dollars really impact people's lives on a day-to-day,
right, forever,
generation
right.
basis.
Talk about life-altering work. You know, it doesn't, you know, really.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then, how about as far as other ways to be able to generate some revenue regarding fundraising? So, obviously, that's a lofty goal, but you know, money certainly you can't. Talk about an investment, right?
Absolutely.
So you can't even, you know, in some ways it's a lot, but it's priceless. So what would you say, though, as far as like other, where does the funding come from? Do you have grant opportunities?
Absolutely. So, you know, I think to remind people that nonprofits are businesses.
Right,
and part of our reason for being here for 135 years is that we have grown our funding. We're always looking for ways that we can diversify our funding to be smart business people. So being a well-run machine, but of course having this aspirational vision of meeting every child and family. And I would love to work myself out of a job, right? I would love to not be here because children and families are supported. And so I think we are always looking for ways to make sure we are sustaining, growing where we can, being innovative, but really listening to the needs of our children and families. They know what they need.
Which are ever changing.
Which are ever changing.
What
so we have to
10
change.
years ago, may not work in the full realm of things. I mean, parts of it may, but things have changed. You know, I mean, you take COVID as an example. I'm sure there's still effects from that. But
those ripples are still present. And I think, again, being able to diversify funding, so from individuals, from corporations, government and state contracts, events that we do, United Ways. I mean, we want to get out in front of everyone and anyone, because, again, we are part of one community. That's what I love about Vermont, right? Is that it's small enough that we have real opportunities to make
We sure do.
change, and I think Lund is at the forefront of making that change.
And I think the other thing that Lund doesn't do is that we don't chase dollars. We really try to look at like what are our needs, what are the holes, are there opportunities for us to collaborate and work together with people, so that we're providing for the services and supports that our families need.
Meaningful,
so, yeah.
right.
So if we hear about a grant opportunity and it fits with our mission and it fits with what we're doing, then we pursue that.
Right, but it's not just to go get money if it's not a good fit, which is so smart, obviously.
And also looking, I mean, one of the things that's really important is our board really has us look and governs that thought process, right? So it's like, you want this, let's talk about that. How is that going, how are those dollars going to affect our clients that we're serving? And how does it affect our agency, right?
Exactly.
And so we really want to do that. And are we the right people to be doing that service? Are we the right people that should be going after that grant, or should we be collaborating with other people in order for that to be able to happen? And so that is a large goal for us to do, and we, our development team is amazing, and they work really well with all of our programs, to talk about what are our individual program needs that we have within each of our programs, and what is our agency needs, right? Because lots of times people want to fund a program, but maybe they don't want to fund an overhead. But if we don't have a building, or if we don't have, overstaff, we can't do the programs.
Right.
And so we need sort of everybody all together. So.
And I love your approach in the sense of, hypothetically, say, you could get $25,000 from an organization, but if the fit doesn't feel right, then why do that? Because in the long run, that's not going to benefit anybody. So to go into it the way that you are, where it's so pure and genuine, and benefits, obviously, the organization, but that company or person that you're talking with has a passion for that aspect. Not to say the overall mission isn't something that is near and dear to their heart, but maybe a particular program, and funding that program for X number of years means more to them. So there's certainly so many opportunities, which is wonderful, because sometimes in certain nonprofits, there's not as much to really kind of wrap your head around and get involved with. Whereas with Lund,
you do so much.
I know.
It's almost the opposite.
It is. Yeah. I know. There's really. I was looking, through everything, and as thought, again, I felt as though I was fairly familiar with the different programs, but it's just amazing how much it has grown, which I did want to talk with you about, Wanda, from the, being the director of adoption. What would you say has changed the most during your 30 years, from when you look back, and just let me back up here for a second, because I loved it when we were first, sitting down talking about how non-transactional, which again, I know firsthand, the whole process of adoption is, that it's really about that rapport and getting to know the needs of that person, obviously the child, number one, but the family, and how everything comes together. But how, and so those kind of things I know don't change. But what would you say has really changed over the years from your perspective?
Well, I think when I first came to Lund and started out in the adoption department, there was 2 staff. We had a part-time secretary, and prior to me coming in, we had one social worker who actually drove their bike to work, but we're a statewide program. It was very interesting to me, like how does that work in Vermont, being such a rural state? And so I can say today we have 21 staff in our adoption program, and that we have grown in the sense of we do private adoption, we do Project Family, which is the collaboration between Lund and the Department for Children and Families, and that we find homes for children. We don't find children for families. We find homes for children.
Yes.
And we finalize all of the adoptions for kids that are in DCF custody.
Of all ages.
Of all ages, yep. And we have Wendy's Wonderful Kids grant, and so the Wendy's Wonderful Kids Foundation came to Lund about 17 years ago and saw the work that we were doing with Project Family in finding and recruiting for children that were needing homes that we were told were unadoptable.
So tell us a little bit more about Project Family as you're saying this.
So Project Family came 25 years ago from a conversation that I was having at a consortium meeting with my dear friend Diane Dexter, who has since passed. And she came to me and said, why are you bringing in kids from outside of the state of Vermont to be adopted by Vermont families? And I said, because there are kids that are needing to have a family, and supposedly we don't have any children here in Vermont that need families. And she said, you're wrong. And she handed me a stack of papers this thick, and she said, all of these kids are kids that are in custody and they need families. And I said, okay, let's work together. So we wrote an adoption opportunities grant. That was a 5-year grant. And in that grant, we had 90 kids that we had identified that were being told were unadoptable kids. And I said, unadoptable is unacceptable.
Exactly. Right.
And there's just unfound homes, and we have a responsibility to be finding homes for these kids. These kids deserve a sense of belonging. So we wrote the grant, we got it for 5 years, and then we went to the legislature and said, this needs to continue. And so we are in the state budget as a line item. We're a sole source in Project Family. It was something that Diane and I created. Beautiful. And it has been legacy. It's been the first public-private partnership in the state of Vermont. We've won national awards with that, and it really works on finding homes for kids, because every child deserves a family. Being a member of family is not a privilege; it's a right, and that's sort of what we focus on and what we're doing. And with the collaboration with the Dave Thomas Foundation, we were able to get 5 recruiters to be able to look for, their job is to work with children who do not have an identified family. And those kids are mostly in the age range of 7 to 18 years old.
And where are they?
They are right here in the state of Vermont.
Right.
And
living where?
They could be living in a foster home, they could be living in a group home, and they could be living in a residential treatment facility. And they deserve and need a family. And we work with a tool called Connect Our Kids to be looking at family. There are, recently we had a 13-year-old on our caseload who we were told didn't have a father. And I was like, wow, like that, tell me more about that.
Sure.
I'm really curious.
Absolutely.
How there's not another side of this equation here.
Right.
And basically it was like, well, he's never been around. They've never been around. And we found him, and we found his family. And what I can say to you all today is that young woman has been adopted by her uncle, who lives across the street from her father. Her father wasn't in a position to be able to have, readopt her because his parental rights were terminated.
Right.
But she has a relationship with him, and she has a family after 13 years.
Right.
And so, so the other question that you're kind of asking when we're looking and thinking about like fundraising and the need for fundraising.
Right.
Don't all kids deserve a chance to belong and be a member of a family?
Right. Just to have their basic needs met alone, that you can't under those other circumstances.
Correct. And then how many times, sometimes we have that feeling, whether it's the people's stigma of, substance use, misuse disorder, like they're not in my family. Well, it's in everybody's family, but some people are talking about it and some people are not talking about it.
But in one way or another,
right.
Every one of us is affected in some way.
Right. By something. And it could be in, you're going to your son's functions when he was at school. There could have been a kid in that classroom that wondered every day when they went home, am I gonna be told I gotta move somewhere?
I mean, the thought of it just gives you chills, and it. We're not naive, obviously, but when you really stop and think about that moment and that day, and all the other kids are going off and they're feeling good and they're going to have a little celebration after, then this other poor child doesn't even know if they're going to have a home, no less if somebody's going to be there that will take care of them. I mean, when you stop and think about it, and it's not that people don't, but you get wrapped up in your own lives, and when you stop and think of obviously how blessed many people are and how much more we can do to see to it that our community is that much greater by spreading that love and kindness and those skills and the confidence and the self-esteem that all comes along with being that family together. And as you say, the dad across the street is such a blessing.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness.
Who didn't exist
Right,
at some point
and
without.
thinking he never would.
Right.
And somehow this girl was told that she didn't have a father.
Right.
Like, and so it's just like those, those kinds of things that are important, or what might have happened 5 years ago. Like, we do this work because we believe their change can happen, right? Change can happen. We all make mistakes. Right. Everybody makes mistakes.
Absolutely.
And, we work with people to, we work on their strengths. We help people see their goodness, and work with them to, like, what are your goals? What are the things that you want to accomplish? And the other story sometimes that I tell, like, sometimes people think like, oh, wow, adoption, that's great. Adoption, the core of adoption is grief and loss, whether it's from an adoptive parent saying, I want this and I'm struggling with infertility, or I'm not unable to get pregnant, or that's not in my cards, and they add to their family, so they go through that grief and loss.
Yes.
And then, people that make a choice to do a birth parent making a choice to do an adoption plan, they go through that grief and loss. And then the child may have a wonder about it. And so the other thing that is really important about Lund is, while it's not a transaction, it's a service from the heart, adoption is also not an event.
Right.
It's a lifelong journey, and Lund provides that support for families lifelong.
Right.
On Tuesday next week, I'm speaking to a 41-year-old birth mother who made an adoption plan 19 years ago, who said, I'm struggling right now. Can I just talk to you? Right? And
to feel comfortable with that relationship and the rapport that's been built.
Right, and we're going to have that conversation, because Lund just doesn't say, thank you.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
They say, what do you need? How can we help? What can we do? And I think that sort of resonates through, like, all of our services. That's a unique thing about Lund, is that we do aftercare work. Right. We have aftercare work, and we understand the importance of that people can come back.
Exactly, and just as you said, to recognize the need for that is inevitable.
Yep.
And to some extent, it might vary, but you can't, as you said, just have it be a transaction and then move on. You're talking about a precious life.
Right.
Yep.
And how to, obviously, when you make that first step, it's beautiful, but then how do you continue to make that so positive?
Right. So it's not the transaction, but at the same time, like Sharon said, we are a business, but we don't say, oh, so sorry, you can't afford this, so therefore we're not going to do it.
Yeah,
right?
we go through plan A, B, through Z.
We look at what the options.
So even for funding.
Even for funding for things, we try to look at what are the options. We had a generous donor actually 9 years ago who came to us, who was an adoptee at Lund, and said, I want to gift a family in your private adoption program their adoption fee. I want to do that.
Right.
Because my life was touched by Lund, and what I got from my life, I want to make sure that happens. Right. So
it's any better than that, right? Oh my goodness.
So.
Talk about the cycle of love. I mean, that in itself is just so beautiful.
Yep. So
back to those kind of thoughts, like that's always been there, that love and that compassion. What has really changed? And anything? I mean, the numbers probably, but is there anything that has surfaced as an area of focus that you hadn't thought of years ago?
Well, I think that the other thing that we do is, like, adoptions are more more open.
Glad you brought
they
that
are
up.
definitely,
Yes.
more open. The birth parents get to make the choices. The adoptive families in so many of our cases are for private adoption or are at the birth of the baby.
Right.
And that people have an ongoing relationship so that they can connect. I think that's
Well, it makes it so healthy.
Right.
Years ago, I mean, I'm going back to, like when I was a child, it was always such a secret whenever you did hear about it. And I never quite understood it. But obviously, when something's secretive, you think that, you think of the negative side of it, like it's not good.
Right.
But then the reality is, when you start talking about it, it's like it's just, as beautiful as it gets as far as such a gift for so many people.
Yeah. And I think it's, so we have that. We offer the post-adopt services so that we're available to support families whenever they need it, support kids whenever they need it. We have some groups for, teenagers right now that were adopted that maybe have some questions and wonders. With the post-permanency supports, we have parent groups that we're offering, which did not happen when I first started, being only 2 staff, and now growing from that.
So a parent group would do what? Is it like a counseling, networking?
It is a networking. We also have a self-care group so that the parents can come together and just sort of talk about self-care. Like you want to be a parent, right? But when you're making that adoption plan, it's sort of like, here you go, right?
I woke up on Monday morning after, we had talked and I felt very comfortable, but I flew down to Philadelphia with an affiliate that you had down there and with my best friend, Karen Erickson, who still remembers you very well. And because she was making all the arrangements, I was like, oh my goodness, it was just so beautiful because I wasn't expecting it to happen so suddenly, but it was really like 9 months to the day. We filled out all the paperwork like on New Year's Eve, and then Matthew was born on September 29th, so it all kind of just happened when we received the call, and then we fly down, we bring him back, and then I wake up on Monday morning and I'm like, there's a baby in that room. I mean, then I bring him to work, and it was just, it really made me who I am, and it made like the group, we were all over at the Edge, and he was at all the managers' meetings because I didn't have anything lined up. Right. Then we opened up a preschool. Thanks to Lund. That it was just fabulous that, then he was right there with me for, a few years. Obviously, it was great to have him right there. But again, I just felt so much more aware of that whole process. I mean, you know what it's like when somebody gives birth and they have time, but then when you have something like this and you don't know, seems like, obviously there's challenges with every aspect of, whether you're giving birth or you adopt a child, but there's things that you need to, stay aware of. And I can honestly say that, thankfully you helped so much because at first I wasn't quite sure what to do, but obviously it was a dream come true. And my mom had just passed away and she said, oh, you'll have a baby someday. And there he is. Right. So it was just, the timing couldn't have been better.
And what I always say to people, it's not will it happen, it's when.
I
it's
agree.
Not if, it is
and you
when.
reassured me of that. And I'm thinking, here I am, I was a single, not mother at the time, just a single person. And I'm thinking, what are the chances? And you assured me that it will happen. You do the home study. Obviously, I was thankful that I qualified, and it was, obviously a good, safe environment for him to thrive. Mm-hmm. And so there is that reassurance, because at first, I did go probably for a few years thinking, well, it'll never happen. Here I am as a single person. But, you made me really believe that someday it would. I didn't think it would be, right then. But it was just, the timing couldn't have been better in hindsight. It's like he kind of saved me as much as I saved him. It was beautiful.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, parenting's the hardest job in the world when you have all of the supports.
Right.
And so when then you think about all of the families we're working with, and just to be able to have those really courageous, vulnerable conversations, and it's a relationship.
The conversations
it's
alone,
just,
right?
And just one person who believes in you and you feel a connection with, who gets you,
can
change
life-altering.
so much.
Absolutely.
Really, really wonderful.
And I think obviously those relationships are such an important part of just who we are as human beings, just relationships. And now, as we all know, you can't really get any type of like customer service or anything like that. So to have a place where you can go and talk from the heart, it's like the extreme of technology.
Yep. Yeah.
Even though I'm sure technology has, helped in many ways for certain things, with software and this, but nothing changed from what I can see from 27 years ago as far as the love and the pure joy and the understanding of how, critical of a time it is for these people on, all the way around.
Absolutely.
Right. And to bring it out into the open and to talk about it very, positively and very proudly, because it is, just obviously transformational for so many people involved.
Right. And how can we reduce stigma and increase empathy?
Exactly.
Right. We live
You wouldn't
in time
think you'd
where
have to, but
absolutely,
but
if it
you're
doesn't
right.
impact me and don't really
Right.
need to care about it. And when we're talking about the people we serve, I mean, we serve 5,500 people across the state. The folks that we're connecting with are connecting with folks. And Wanda talks about this a lot, right? It's not those people over there, but this is your son's friend. This is the person you're interacting with at the grocery store. And so when we think about where we can make an impact, again, we're really just investing in a future for Vermont that's going to be better for our children and our children's children. That comes from a place of empathy and respect and understanding.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's just so beautiful. I'm so thankful to have both of you here and to, get updated on some of the things that are, happening now versus, before. And even though there's a lot of new programs, I love the fact that foundation, I don't think it will ever change. Obviously, it's, that is the integrity and the core of all the work that is being done. So I certainly wish you the best, Wanda, with your future.
Yes. Thank you very much. Well, I'm retiring from Lund, but I'm not going to go away.
Too far, right? Exactly.
Right.
What about volunteer opportunities, though, as we wrap up?
Sure.
Is there anything that is a real need that is going on right now in the organization that we can, put the word out to people to just be aware of and help in any way? Like, do you do,
Yeah, well, we actually launched today Joy Drive, which is our holiday gift drive.
Okay.
And we call it Joy Drive for two reasons. One, that's what we're doing. We're spreading joy, and also our building is on Joy Drive. So it's a win-win.
First,
so
that's what I thought
drop
it was.
It off in the address, right?
Let's stop and think about it. There's a lot of joy we're talking about here, right?
Right. So last year we supported over 400 individuals with 2 wants and 2 needs. We had 1,600 gifts that went out across the state. And, we work with our families and our staff to be able to provide just a little bit more magic and care and comfort. And if a kid says they want a medium-sized Nike sweatshirt, our team's going to go out and with the, support of our community, find that team a sweatshirt. And what we hear is that, to be able to have those new items, to show up at school when school starts, and everyone else is showing off their new stuff, and you have something because someone cares about you, or your parents don't have to think about that burden of gas or a gift. So being able to have volunteers that can come to Joy Drive, help sort gifts, engage with the community.
Distribute.
Yep, and then also that might want to participate. I'm excited to take my young boys out shopping this year for the first time so that they can understand this is really a culture of philanthropy about caring for others. So there's quite a few different ways to get involved. But we launched that today, and the information is on our website on ways to give. But it's Joy Drive, and we're just excited to share joy throughout the state.
And we also have a yearly family adoption guardianship picnic that happens. And next year's picnic, so people can
get the date,
September 27th, and it's available for all families that are joined by adoption and or guardianship in the state of Vermont.
And how many people would you typically get at one of these picnics?
Prior to COVID, we had about 600.
Where is it held?
It's held, we've had it in a variety of different locations, but we've now moved to the Vermont building at the fairgrounds. And we have, this year we had a little over 300 people attend.
Amazing.
So hopefully it's building back up again.
Yep, I think it will.
Good. Well, thank you both so much. I can't tell you, you really set the tone for my day, and it just brought me back to so many great memories that I'll continue to reminisce about for days to come and talk to people about. So I really appreciate all that you're doing in the community. I want to get in touch and see what I can do, certainly with sorting and running around. I'm all about it. I would really enjoy that very much. It would mean a lot to me, so I appreciate that. And thank you both.
Thank you
so much for the work you do every minute of the day.
Thank you very much for thinking of us and allowing us on the show.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.